Hello guys and welcome back to another episode of Supercoach mates. Well, round 13 is done and dusted after the blockbuster Big Freeze game today at the MCG. So we're just going to do a recap on round 13, how we went, and just go through each game, pick some players out, and maybe look at some trade and captain and vice captain options later on in the podcast. But it's just Thomas again tonight. Unfortunately, Jonas, I think, has a couple of exams left, but he will be back, I think, for my next one. So it'd be good to get everyone back. So we'll quickly start off with how you went this week, Thomas. So how do you go this week? Bit of a rough week for a lot of coaches, I think, with obviously a lot of popular players missing. I think Bulldogs were out this week, a couple of other popular sides as well. So how do you manage it?
I always knew this week was going to be pretty rough. I only had 15 on field, I think, and that was, it would have been 16 if Connor McDonald managed to play, but he didn't. So 15 on field and end up with a score of just over 1,700, which obviously wasn't great, but I kind of had it coming for me a little bit. But overall, not the worst. I mean, out of the premiers that played, nothing really to complain about, which was nice to see. But yeah, overall it's quite good for what it was worth in the end. And yeah, I think this week it should be my strongest week with projected over 2,000. So hopefully it'd be nice to crack over the 2K mark for once with arguably the strongest. Should be my strongest week on field with regards to having enough premiums on field to get a real good score. But how did you go this week?
Yeah, I was much the same. I just scraped the 1685 this week. I think I only had about 15 or 16 players on the field as well. But I'll give a shout out here to Stephen Cornelio, which is someone who I think a lot of people have traded out already. But he's absolutely flying. Ever since he's been moved back in the midfield. He just looks like the Cornelio of old. And I think for those of us who've kept him, I think he might end up being a top 6 forward. So if you've kept him like I have, you might have potentially saved yourself there a trade. And the dud, look, I don't really like picking on an injured player. But I think Max Gorn was actually one of my lowest scorers this week from what I can see. So I don't like potting injured players, but obviously he got 198 last week, so probably a bit harsh to pot Max Gorn, but he was my lowest scorer. I'm not going to pot Owens because he got subbed out. Was only in his second game, so it really only leaves Big Max. So
yeah, no, it was disappointing to be fair.
Yeah, and obviously I'll give a shout out to Patrick Cripps. I took his 126 and I was a bit worried because Oliver was on like 90 at half time. But he ended up slowing up in the second half, so I'll take that. Moving on here, so we're just going to go through each of the games now. So we'll start off with this Richmond and Port Adelaide game way back on Thursday night. Let's talk about Dustin Martin. Now, I only scored the 70. There is a little band-aid there, so I think he might have picked up a knock. What are we doing with Dustin Martin? Is he someone who we can rely on, or is he just a hard pass given his role and whatnot?
Yeah, definitely wouldn't bring him in. I don't think there'd be too many people that still have him due to his mental health break earlier this year. But I just think that it could be a case of him just kind of easing back into footy and really kind of shining towards the latter end of the season. Because I think this year in particular, there'll be a lot of teams vying for the 8. You can see that I think from 5th to 8, you pretty much have the same amount of points. So it's pretty tight up the top. And he's playing a lot forward, not much in the midfield at the moment, and Richmond are getting away with it without having him dominating in the midfield. So, yeah, I think it's just a case of him not finding his full fitness and just easing back into it, and then just trying to get his feet finding his feet again in the forward line at the moment. And it's not really ticking, like he's showing glimpses, but I think he's just easing back into it. Like 13 disposals, 2 goals. Pretty quiet day, but we've seen this from Dusty in a regular season as well, so it doesn't really surprise me at all. But yeah, definitely wouldn't bring him in towards the kind of stages of the season where you need to have a full premium side, and I wouldn't be risking someone like him who's quite volatile.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough too. I don't think there's really anyone else. Just maybe keep an eye on young Judson Clark, who in his first game kicked 2 goals with his first 2 kicks. He got a beautiful left foot from what I saw of that game. So
yeah, he actually looked quite impressive.
There's a name to keep out in a couple of weeks. I think he's a midfielder forward at 117,000 off the top of my head.
Played that high half forward role. Almost better than Rioli in a sense. Rioli maybe a bit more pressure forward, and he's a bit more kind of up the ground, get a few more disposals, and he did look pretty good. Me and Nathan were speaking off air during that game where he was on 30 something at quarter time, and he's ended up on 63, which doesn't surprise us at all. He scored those 2 goals earlier in the first quarter and set Richmond up. But he definitely looks pretty good. But I wouldn't be surprised if 64, 70 is kind of his ceiling. Wouldn't be expected too many huge scores from him as was Rioli. So that high half forward role is pretty much going to be competed between the likes of himself, I think, Castagna and Rioli. So yeah, I mean, at this point in the season, when you're looking at premium teams, you'd be not really too fussed who you're bringing in as a rookie. I think whoever plays or looks like having, maybe a couple games in them is not a bad shout. You're not really looking for rookies that are going to be making money long term.
No, I don't think so. And I don't think there's really anyone else from the Richmond game. I think if you've got Gibcus still, I think now's the time to get rid of him. He had his bye, and yeah, I think he did his job wonderfully well. Moving on to this Port Adelaide side, want to talk to you about Butters and Rosie. So these are 2 guys who I know Butters was very popular at the start of the year, and I think he still is. And Rosie was sort of someone who came up maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago after a couple of really good games. But he has just tapered off a bit, Rosie. We'll start off with Rosie first, because I think most people would have Butters. What would you do if you had Rosie?
I'd be a bit concerned. I mean, we called this a while ago, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, we didn't really see him as a prospect to continue his form, especially in the midfield. He's really damaging on the forward or the half forward line. So the poor scores really don't surprise me at all. Yeah, he's one that I think sucked in a few people when he got his couple hundreds in a row playing midfield and then just got back into his regular forward position. I think a lot of people, you got a lesson to be learned throughout the season. If you don't get sucked into sample sizes of 3 to 5 games, you just look at Alex Witherden, who started the house on fire and has been absolutely terrible since. So yeah, you just gotta be careful that you have to look at history, not just get sucked in by short term high scores. But yeah, on the flip side, Butters got a huge knock.
That was a brutal knock.
Yeah. Against Tommy Jonas, basically just went whack straight in the face. And to be fair, he was lucky that he wasn't subbed out. So you take an 87 from him at that rate. So yeah, Butters is one that I think you can afford to keep him as late as you can and then just ship him off until you finish your team. Obviously, don't ship him off if you need to get rookies off field first, because as we know, he can score quite well. And he's just been unlucky, I think, throughout these last month or so, where he's been getting these whacks here and there, which has been affecting his score. But one player I do want to speak on quickly, want to get your thoughts on it, Nathan, quickly before we move on to the next game, is Dan Houston. Obviously, someone that has burnt people in the past. He burnt me last season, but he's actually been doing quite well this season, playing more so off that halfback flank. What are your thoughts on Houston as someone that you might want to bring in maybe if you've got, say, the likes of Stewart, Sicily, you've got all those top liners and you're looking for an F6? What's your thoughts on Houston?
Yeah, I don't mind it, actually. I think he's top 6 at the minute, actually. I think he's probably going to slot in 6th spot. I think he's probably It's probably between him and Dawson, I'd say. I think you can't go wrong with both of them. But given the fact that both players have burnt people in the past, I wouldn't be confident having both of them. In my case, I've actually already got 6 defenders, so I'm actually going to pass on both of Dawson and Houston. But I think if you've got an injury late on in the year, say in my case, say I've got Jack Crispy P gets injured, I don't think Houston and Dawson will be the worst options to bring in.
Yeah.
But if you've got him, I would definitely will be keeping him. As I said, he's top 6 at the minute. I think he's pretty much toe and toe with Dawson. So you wouldn't be complaining if you've got him. If you haven't got him, I don't think he's the worst option to bring in either. I'd probably just have maybe Short and Sinclair ahead of him.
Yeah.
Just because I think they're in better sides, and I think especially with Sinclair, I think his run off halfback is pretty much what's keeping St Kilda in games, and I think he's going to probably play more midfield, Sinclair. So I think I'd be getting Sinclair and Short in ahead of Houston, but as I said, I don't think he's the worst option in the world, Houston. Moving on to this Friday night game, which I actually had the privilege to go to, and I did like what Essendon did at the start of the thing there when they got all those legends out on the field. I thought it was a very, very touching moment. Just a shame that their performances this year have just been
didn't translate across.
Shocking. Just so slow with the ball. But anyway, I want to talk to you about Zach Merritt. Now, this is someone who you brought in, I believe this week. What did you make of his? What did you make of his performance? And are you maybe kicking yourself that you didn't pay the extra $15K and go for Andy Brayshaw?
I mean, the main reason I didn't go for Brayshaw is because Brayshaw's got his bye this week. So realistically, I'm taking the points this week as well across Merritt. Merritt, ideally, if you compare Brayshaw and Merritt, I would have definitely got Brayshaw. I think I might have actually been priced out, unfortunately, just. But yeah, Merritt, the issue with him is he's going to have a lot of possessions to score well. But he did show, I think half the reason why he didn't end up turning up was because he was stuck on the bench for like 10 minutes on that final quarter. So really suffered just because he couldn't get back on field. But when he was on like 71 with like 10 minutes to go and then just dominated in the midfield for the last 10 minutes, just got that 6 possessions in a row. So yeah, he's one that, I mean, I'm pretty happy to have as at M7. It looks like with Patraca just falling off a cliff a little bit, but he's one that I'm not annoyed that I brought in. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with what I saw so far. I mean, he'd taken 90 when they got absolutely smashed in the clearances. Like they played St Kilda this Friday night, and I think the clearances will be a lot more evened up this week, especially if Parrish comes up. But yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining, especially at his price that I got. Was able to, save myself doing an extra trade to bring in a premium this week rather than, just sticking with the 3 trades and bringing 2 premiums instead of having to do four trades and then to bring an extra premium in. So yeah, couldn't complain with that because I think I brought in Sinclair and Merritt and then one other rookie, which was what's his face? I don't know, completely forgot the rookie off the top of my head, but yeah, was able to do that. And if Merritt was, always bringing in, say, a Parrish or a Walsh who didn't score too well themselves, I would have had to bring another rookie on top of that to afford that. So it's definitely saved me a trade there. And I think the difference in scoring between, say, a Merritt and a Parrish and Walsh, just looking into the next couple of weeks, might actually be okay. So yeah, hopefully Merritt can, sustain his good form and definitely save the 100K or so difference between those two.
Yep, we'll touch on Darcy Parish now. So only 51. I think he got subbed out with I think it was a hip injury. I think it was. Oh no, it was
it was a calf. I think, or some sort of corky.
Yeah, he got a corky, I think, in the left calf, I think it was. So only the 51. So this is probably going to hurt Jonas because I think
Yeah.
he's got Parish, and I think both of us don't. Could he be an option perhaps in a couple of weeks, given his scoring, or is he sort of in the same boat as Merritt, where he's going to have to get a lot of the ball to score well?
I don't think he's definitely in the realm of, yeah, he's someone that I think does a bit more impact with the ball. He still has a tendency for needing to get a lot of possessions to get the ball. I mean, it doesn't help that Essendon's been doing horribly. But yeah, I think with him, you're probably going to be having to wait a couple of weeks for his price to drop. So if you need someone to finish off your team, I'd probably be looking elsewhere, like your Andy Brayshaw's if you want to wait the extra week or something like that. But yeah, Parish definitely disappointing. I know there'll be a lot of people that brought him in this week off his bye, and it looked to seem that from what I heard as well on social media that he wasn't 100% right going into the game as well. And I think definitely didn't look right after his hit and just was stuck in the forward line and subbed off immediately. So a bit unfortunate because, yeah, 51 definitely hurts after being so impressive for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone else from this Essendon side to really touch on. Moving on to Carlton, I will give a shout out here to George Hewitt. I finally got in George Hewitt, and he pulled out his first sub 100 score of the year. So I'm not happy with George, but I think in the long run, I think surely that's going to end up being a win there. I hope. But otherwise, I think all of Carlton here, I think most of the guys. Oh, well, let's touch on Sam Walsh actually. Only the 75 of 29 disposals. Is he someone who we could look at bringing in as well in a couple of weeks' time?
I think just with, I mean, it really depends on which Blues you already have. Like for myself, I've got Cripps, Doherty, and Hewitt as well. So bringing in Walsh was an option that I obviously had, but chose not to, partially because having just too many Blues players in the one basket. I've already got too many Dogs players in one team at the moment, and we can see what happens. Like we saw last week when the Dogs got smashed, that just no Dogs did well. I mean, obviously they got half decent scores, but you know, you can't expect all of them to hit at once. And if you just do that on too many sides, I think that can impact you negatively. Yeah, Walsh was probably a bit frustrating for owners. He obviously almost turned up in Dream Team, had almost 30 disposals, but he has these tendencies to do that, where he just gets a lot of the ball and either uses it badly, or is just under so much pressure that he doesn't use it effectively enough. But yeah, I'd say that Walsh, similar to Parish, I don't think you can wait too long if you want to finish your side off quickly, but he's definitely not a bad option. And the way the Blues are going, that kind of mean good things for Walsh, where he's getting the ball more in the attacking half and actually being involved in scoring chains rather than just chipping around the back and trying to be all defensive. But yeah, the Blues are on fire at the moment, and he'll be a beneficiary of that for sure, along the sides of, you know, Cripps and Hewitt have been doing fantastic all season.
Yeah, so the other thing with Walsh too, so I actually went through Carlton's draw in the back half of the year. They've got a really tough draw in the back half of the year, which I don't know if that helps him, but they've got, so their next 3 games are Richmond, Fremantle, and St Kilda. And then they've got West Coast, so you'd probably give them that one. And then they've got Geelong. And then they finish off their last 4 games at Adelaide in Adelaide, Brisbane in Brisbane, Melbourne and Collingwood. So it's a really tough run home for Carlton. So I don't know if that impacts his scoring, but yeah, that's just something to keep in mind, I think, with these Carlton players, is that they do have a really tough run home. So yeah, I think that's something to keep in mind. We'll move on now to the Fremantle game. And let's talk about Nat Fyfe. It was great to see the Fyfe back for Freo. Obviously, played a lot forward, but he did sort of come in the midfield. Can we look at Fyfe, or is he just a bit of a pass given his history?
Yeah, no, definitely wouldn't bring him in. It was good to see him back on the footy field, but you'd be crazy to bring him in now, especially he's not like midfield or anything. He's going to take a while to get back in the swing of things and could predominantly play forward for the rest of the season just because of how well Freo's set up is. But someone I'll probably get your opinion on is Will Brody. He didn't really get impacted by Fife, I don't think. Played a lot of midfield time as well. Was in the high amount of centre bounces and things like that. But what are your thoughts on Brody? Obviously, this is the first time in a while that, used to 82 is not a bad score. I mean, for someone that started off 200k, a lot of people forget that just because he scored a couple hundreds in a row and all of a sudden he's whipped out an 82, everyone's like, what's going on here? But do you think with Fife back in the side, it's going to impact him negatively moving forward? You're going to see these lower points? Like you see there, 67% time on ground, pretty much the lowest in the side. What are your thoughts on Will Brody there?
Well, I actually watched this game and he was there, like when he was on the ground, he was in the centre bounce along with Brayshaw and Sarong. So I think it was just a case of, because Sarong and Brayshaw were just that dominant in the middle, that he sort of didn't really get into the game. But I think this is going to be a great luxury for Fremantle to have, and this is why I think they're going to be really hard to beat for the premiership. I know I'm saying that around 13, but they've had Fife on the sidelines the whole time, and now he's come back in, and I think it really gives them such a strong midfield four now that's probably underrated here in Melbourne. I mean, Brayshaw's in career best form. He's in Brownlow medal form. They've got Brody, who's in career best form. They've got Sarong, who just gets the job done every week. And now they're adding Fife back into it. I mean, that's just about as good a midfield four as any side in the comp. So I think they can work this out. From what I saw, I think they can work this out. I guess the only concern is that Fife did spend a lot of time forward. And if he does get back in the midfield more, whose scoring is it going to impact the most? But from what I saw, I think Will Brody's safe at least off his bye. I'm not going to rush to get rid of him. But yeah, I think this is just a case of Brayshaw and Sarong just having two just outstanding games, and everyone sort of just came off the back of them. So I'm not too concerned about Brody off one game. Yeah. Obviously we'll move on to Hawthorne. I don't think there's really anyone here from Hawthorne of note to talk about. I did say Tom Mitchell did get 81. I think I'm going to have to eat that one as a bit of a loss, that option a few weeks ago. I potentially said, I think Hawthorne have had their bye already, or was it this week? No, it's this week, but he just isn't performing. So if you have got him or you had him on your radar, I probably wouldn't be going down that path. Anyway, we'll move on to this game, this bruising game up here at the Gabba between Brisbane and St Kilda. Poor old St Kilda ended up with only, I think, one player on the bench in the last quarter. So
and it wasn't even,
I think they just ran out of legs. But I want to talk about Dane Zorko. So only the 53. He got subbed out, I think was a hamstring. I think they're saying, or a groin. Obviously, he has been in good form in the back line, Zorko. But what would you do if you had him? Is it time to just accept your losses and get rid of him, or do you think you can hold him?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's time to cut your losses with him. If you haven't done so already, I think he'll more than likely miss the Melbourne game after the bye, which is a bit unfortunate for Brisbane supporters. But yeah, it didn't look too great, that hammy. I think it was a bit better than what they originally expected, but still wasn't amazing. And yeah, he's just too volatile with his scoring. He's not getting those 130s to 140s, which he was kind of getting on a occasional basis last year. And having Khadid coming back as well in the defensive half of Brisbane is, I think, really suffering Zorko's score, because he's kind of going to be stuck between defensive and midfield, where he rotates between the two, but doesn't really kind of stay in that one position and accumulate the ball like he used to. He's just another player on the field. And I think the players around him are doing better. Like you've got the likes of Cameron who's dominating. You got Jared Berry's finding some form as well. So he's just kind of a bit lost out there, I think. And yeah, he's very prone to those kind of 40s and 50s, regardless of if he gets subbed or not. So I don't know, injured or not. So yeah, one to cut your ties with, unfortunately.
Yeah, the only problem with him now is I'm on here now. He's down at 430,000. So
yeah, there's not much you can do with him.
Really, a lot of options at that price. I don't think in the back line that are worthwhile. And to get one of these, like Houston types or someone like that, like you're gonna need 120 odd K to do that. Like even if you want to get in Doherty, who's impressive, like that's still a 110K jump from Zorko to Doherty. So yeah, it's a bit of a tough situation if you've got him, I think. So I don't think there's anyone else here from this Brisbane side. So moving on to St Kilda, this is a bit off topic here. Normally we don't look at players who are doing well. But someone who I think's flown under the radar, Brad Crouch, who's just flying this year for St Kilda. His 5-round average is 122. He's ranked 17th this year for midfielders, which is probably not what anyone was expecting off the top. Can he be a potential point of difference midfielder come, say, round 23, and you're looking for someone who's a little bit left of centre? Could Brad Crouch be an option?
Potentially, but I'd say, most people's midfield would be close to be done. I think it's you probably your opportunities passed a little bit with regards to bringing him in, just because of Steele not being there and Steele's coming back within the next 2 weeks. So I think that'll impact his score a little bit. Crouch's been the main man, that midfield three, and he's been pretty good for us as well. He's been pretty clean with the ball and dominated, most times in that midfield. Has been our main clearance player, which has been excellent for us. But I'd say with Steele coming back, he's kind of one that maybe if you're doing league specific and you need someone that give you a point of difference going into that league final or something, could be someone you could bring in. But he's already risen a fair bit in price as well. So I probably wouldn't be looking towards him, even though I think he'll still go well, considering he seems to keep doing well to progress into, maintain that top 6 calculation or even stay in the top 8 overall. So yeah, he's one that I'd kind of watch a little bit, but I wouldn't be bringing him in, say this week or next, even though he's been doing well, just because we don't know how he did it. He said this is the first time he's done this over his entire career at the Saints. So yeah, with Steele coming back, I think it'll impact him a little bit, and he'll go back to that kind of 100 to 90 score when Steele's back in there.
Yeah, and I think there's really anyone else from St Kilda other than this guy who just can't seem to get a run at it, Mitch Owens.
Yeah, it was a bit unfortunate.
Only got 26. I think a lot of people would have brought him in off his bye, myself included. Were you the same?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much the number one trading rookie, I think, because he just scored off a 90 and it was definitely playing, et cetera, et cetera. He looked actually had a very quiet first quarter, but just completely went into a different gear in the second quarter and was huge for us around stoppages, was actually quite aggressive and was going head to head with the likes of Rayner and Lyons and the tougher nuts in the Brisbane outfit. But yeah, it got unfortunate when I think it was Lincoln McCarthy bumped him in the play and knocked him off high, and he was subbed out and he had a pretty bad knock. So yeah, it was a bit unfortunate because he was looking at probably like a 50 or 60, so definitely not the worst score in the world. It could have been, a big impact going to the second half. And yeah, alongside all our other injuries for the night, was pretty rough. And yeah, a bit unfortunate considering that he would have made a bit of money, but unfortunately for that, that's just how it goes, and he'll miss next week. And it's a bit unfortunate for people that need him to play to make up the numbers. But yeah, it is what it is, and he'll come back into the side, no doubt. I think he's a definitely good player going into the future.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with him. I think at this stage, if you're still relying on Mitch Owens to get you rookie money, I think you're in a lot of trouble anyway. So we'll move on to this North Melbourne
debacle.
Another debacle. I don't know why I watched this, but I did. Want to talk about Aaron Hall. So 94. So this guy, obviously, last year, I think was a top 6 defender. 94 in his first game. Is he someone who could potentially pop up like and be a sort of a top 6, top 8 defender? Not, he won't be on average or total points given his injury, but could he be, say, someone who averages, say, like 105, 110 for the rest of the year?
Yeah, definitely. I think the only issue stopping people would be if you've completed your back line, or you complete just pure injury concerns with him. His hamstrings are made of paper, so
Yeah, they
I
are.
wouldn't be surprised if he somehow injured himself again leading into the season's end. But yeah, 94 just basically came back where he left off. He copped the De Boer tag as well, so getting a 94 with a tag, semi tag, whatever you call it, did pretty well. And he'd be someone that he had a break in of 134 and he hit 94, so he's going to drop a bit in cash. So yeah, someone that you could actually look in for Zorko, be a potential trade up that wouldn't burn the bank. But yeah, I mean, North's an absolute shambles at the moment. They're just not going anywhere near the expectations they were at the start of the season. They haven't improved throughout the season. It's what we've been most concerning. But yeah, Hall has been one that, I mean, I personally won't bring him in because I finished my back 6. But yeah, he's one that I guess if you needed someone a bit cheaper to move up or a luxury upgrade or even you want to bring him in as a cheap D6 and then move another person off swing into midfield, that's an option. But yeah, he's one that I guess you might want to wait another week just in case, just to see how he fully recovers. But I think, he's kind of just come back in and slotted back in from where he left off, which was quite impressive for North. And he was everyone's basically, D1, D2 start of the season. So getting a pretty discounted price is definitely handy.
Yeah, and just want to touch on Horn Francis real quick. So found out today he'd been offered a too much ban for that hit on, I think it was Kelly, wasn't it? Yeah. You probably shouldn't really have him given he's scoring. I don't think he's scoring much, but I think this is a final straw now. I think if you've got him, I think now's cut your losses before he goes down anymore. Moving on to the Giants. So again, this is a little bit off topic here, but someone who has impressed the last 2 weeks, in fact, so much so he's actually in my side at the minute, is Himmelberg. From Harry Himmelberg, from who I can't believe he's in my side. But last 2 weeks he's gone 140 odd, I think, 126, and then on the weekend 187, 37 disposals and a goal. He's playing in the back line. What do we make of Himmelberg as being a bit of a short-term option given his break-evens minus 61 this week at 435,000?
Yeah, the way he's going, he's probably going to be over 500k by the next 2 weeks. So he's one that I guess, Nathan, you can speak more on him in how you saw him play. It's only sort of last quarter, but from what I heard on the radio as well, when I was driving back home, was dominated everywhere. He pretty much was there loose behind the ball. Obviously, North Melbourne is a very weak sample size to use because you're not playing against much in the forward line. I think the good thing with Himmelberg, he's not playing as a key defensive post. You got Sam Taylor and Lockie Keefe, and you've even got what's his name?
Connor Iden.
No, he's not even playing at the moment. It slipped my mind, but he was definitely one of their good players a couple of years back, or in the last several years. It's been solid for him. That's it. Nick Haynes.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Nick Haynes isn't even in the side yet. So my only concern with Himmelberg is I want to bring him in the side this week, but he's already risen 85. How much he's already risen? 100 plus K. You've missed the boat.
85.
Yeah, he moved up 85k this week alone on that 187. It was a huge score. So if you got him in this week, you'd be laughing. But yeah, it's one that I think, Haynes can play the exact same role, and he's done that obviously, for the last couple of years under Cameron. So whether or not they are competing for the same spot, who knows? It's a risk that I think this is obviously definitely the last week you can do to pull the trigger. Whether or not he continues his good form is yet to be seen. But yeah, it's a risky, not I'd say risky move actually, because you're paying, considerably less than 500k. But yeah, he's one that has definitely impressed in the last couple of weeks and just dominated against North. Like, if you have had any doubt on him moving into that role, we'll be all quelled by then he smashed out the park, almost hit a 190 for that. And yeah, every possession was just clean and really looked comfortable down back, which was nice to see. But yeah, there'll be a little bit, there'll be a little bit of a doubt creeping in with Haynes not being there as well. But so far, so good for him to go.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the reason why it's going to be so popular this week is that if you still got the McCartan and the Koning, like I do, like it's only a what is he 3? What is he 4? So he's 435. Yeah, I'm doing this. So it's only 75k to go from De Koning to Himmelberg, and then it's only 59k to go from McCartan to Himmelberg. So I think like the role that he plays, he's so composed with the ball. He just picked everything off. He's got a great kick on him. I think if you've got 10 trades left, I don't think you can afford to do it, because I still think there's a question mark over whether or not this is going to be a long-term thing. If you're in my case, like I've still got trades to burn, I can probably afford to do it. And if he bums out and he goes back to what he was doing, he's made me a quick 150k. And like that's going to get me someone who's probably going to finish like Bond or, Bailey Smith when he comes back, or someone like that. So I think in the short term, he's probably going to keep doing maybe not 187, but probably around the 100 mark. But I guess the problem is that because he's playing so well, I wonder if sides are going to start putting some work into him to try and quell his influence. But yeah, I think he's going to be a short-term option. I don't think you're going to be saying in round 23 he'll be in your side. Yeah. But I think he's a good short-term option just to get you a quick 100, 150k. And given the fact there aren't many rookies playing either, I don't think it's the worst option for a bit of short-term money. But the other guy I want to touch on real quick, I know we're sort of going a bit off topic here, but Cornelio, another 174. Have you still got him, Thomas?
Yeah, I do, which has been good fun.
Yeah.
It was one of those scenarios where back when everyone traded him out, I think the only reason I kept him was because they were playing West Coast, and then he went nuts in that game. And he went nuts again. He's one player that I think if he had his role from the start would have always been a keeper. But unfortunately, he got sucked into that, small forward role when Cameron was still under the helm, and now he's back to his midfield best. And definitely showing why he's so, why he's such a prolific player and why ended up being the captain of the GWS Footy Club for a bit. So, yeah, he's one that I think now the people that have held him are definitely happy, and he definitely is a keep for the immediate future, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm glad I held him. What about Toby Green? So only the 84. He's down to 397,000. So unbelievably, you can downgrade Himmelberg for Toby Green, which is definitely not something I thought I'd be saying at the start of the year.
Yeah.
What would you do if you had Toby Green? He's just in no man's land really at the minute. What would you do if you had him?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there'd be too many people that brought him in, obviously being suspended for the first 4 weeks of the season or whatever. Yeah, I mean, he's someone that I don't think there'd be too many people that would have brought him in to start with. If you did, I guess you'd probably still keep him. He's just one of those players. I think he's in a similar mold to Heaney, where unfortunately I haven't seen Toby Green scored the 130s and 140s that Heaney scored early in the season, but he's in that similar mould where it's just so volatile. You just don't know, what to expect from them, unfortunately. So, yeah, it is one of those situations where, at the end of the day, there's not much you can do about it if you did bring him in. But, yeah, I don't know what else you would have wanted to expect. Bring in someone like Toby Green, I guess you're just happy that he didn't get suspended yet, which is probably nice for him as a player. But, yeah, definitely someone that I think could actually start warming up. But the GWS is starting to win more games now, so who knows?
Yeah, and moving on to this last game. So I want to touch on, it's hard to not touch on Nick Dacos. I think he's burnt a lot of people. I think a lot of people have got rid of him. In the last 2 weeks, I think he's gone 102 and 112. No, 113, 112. His break-even's now 8. Can you keep him off his bye, given his break-even's 8, and he's coming off 200 plus scores?
Wait, who's this one?
Nick Dacos.
Oh, Nick Dacos, yeah. It's an interesting one because it's now be the perfect time to get rid of him.
You almost don't want to get rid of him.
Yeah, he's definitely dominated over the last 2 weeks. I think, it's an interesting one because, would not have expected this as a neutral. Obviously, it helps that the Pies have been doing, superbly well over the last 4 weeks. So, I think it's a hard one because, you could almost see him as a keeper going into after the buys and almost keeping him in as your kind of D7 flipping between the midfield. That'd be one of the perfect scenarios to have where you can just flip him in and then almost have him as a loophole. Maybe if you can figure it out during matchups, or if you have a weak, D6, for example, you can easily swap him in and out. Definitely someone that's handy to have. But I think if you're in a situation where you need the money and you've held him on purely because of cash generation, this would be not a bad time to just get rid of him, bank the points that you're going to miss because he's going to have to buy, and then go from there, because you can pretty much afford anyone based off his price when you're doing upgrades. So maybe if you missed out on one of the top liners, this could be the perfect opportunity to pick him off their buy. And maybe complete your side. But maybe ideal scenario, you want to keep him as a D7. But I think a lot of people would be in a situation where I'd rather him as a trade out to an Uber premium, or have a premium in place and have him at D7 rather than just hoping that he maintains the scoring across, D6 or M8, because he's a player that's obviously first year in the system. Who knows how well he can keep this up? He's obviously looked amazing off halfback. Provides a lot of speed, but whether or not he can maintain this for another 11 games or whatever it is, 10 games is yet to be seen.
Yeah, so I actually plan on keeping him as my D7 sort of M9. Because I think he's just I'm probably not going to expect him to keep scoring 100, but I'm just having a look here now, and Sam Walsh averaged 87 in his first year. That's all he really has to do in the second half of the year. Like, you're not going to keep him and expect him to be on the field, but he's not going to get dropped from that Collingwood side unless he gets injured. I think he's a really good backup if you've got, say, a weak D6. In my case, I don't think that's going to be the case, but I actually have kept Rowell and McCartan, and I'm actually planning on using those two to get in the other two midfielders I need, which will allow me to keep Nick Dacos in that D7 M9 role and just flicking between the midfield and the back line as need be, just to plug some holes if there's any that pop up. But I think ideally I'd keep him if you can, but obviously it is the right time to get rid of him, and I think he's done a wonderful job. I don't think anyone would tell you not to get rid of him, but I think with that break-in of 8, if you're looking at him for money, he's probably only got 1 or 2 weeks left, and then you're probably going to have to move on. But I think if you're looking at it like I am, I don't really care what his value is as long as he's still in the side. And he's still scoring well. I think he's going to stay in as that D7. And the bye might actually help him and might give him a bit of a rest. Because he's been outstanding in the first half of the year. But moving on, so Scott Pendlebury and Jordan De Goey, which I think Jonas has De Goey and Scott Pendlebury was someone who we flagged earlier in the year as being a potential top 6, top 8 defender. Just been down the last few weeks as Pendlebury, and De Goey just had one of his off games again, just didn't impact really at all. Do we just ride the wave out with these two, or do we look at trading them?
Yeah, I think Jonas off there traded out De Goey for, I think, Laird, I think it was. He's jumped ship off De Goey. I think
he's jumped.
Yeah, jumped ship, unfortunately. I think, yeah, De Goey, unfortunately, just hasn't hit the heights of what we expected off last season. That even though Collingwood are now finding their form, I think he's just not getting the impact that he once was last year. And I think if you have him, just time to get rid of him off his bye, perfect opportunity to get rid of him. He just hasn't been hitting those hundreds, unfortunately. Yeah, Pendlebury, as we flagged a couple weeks ago, it was one of those cases where he's now being flipped a fair bit all over the place, playing more in the midfield to negate opposition midfielders, and just not getting the ball as often enough, and is a bit prone to these kind of low to high 60 to 70 scores. So he's one, if you got him, I'd say same as De Goey, get rid of him, get someone else in, and just move on, because I think it's just someone that you got to admit that you kind of stuffed up with that one, and move on.
Yeah, and moving on to this Melbourne side, who I think have been really disappointing the last 3 weeks. It was only 3 weeks ago we were talking about an unbeaten season for Melbourne when they go 22-0, and now they're not even on top of the ladder. So, been a huge turnaround there. Want to talk to you about Christian Patraca. Now, this concerns you because I believe you're a Patraca owner. So he didn't get to 100 again. He's down at 487,000, which is a bargain for someone of his caliber in the game. If you're looking for a cheap M8, could this be the way to go?
At the moment, I wouldn't be bringing him in. Unfortunately, I think I don't know what's wrong with Patraca. Obviously 32 disposals. I think he had like 6 or 7 turnovers, so that would have impacted his score a fair bit. Didn't crack the ton as well, which is annoying. I wouldn't be bringing him in at the moment. He's definitely going to be some sort of injury cloud. I think a fair few of those Melbourne boys are just absolutely exhausted, and just haven't been rested. And hopefully the bye will do them a world of good, and they come out and completely dominate after the bye. That'd definitely not be nice. But yeah, Patraca has definitely looked really sluggish over the last couple of weeks. And, plays that dusty role where he starts instead of bounce and immediately moves forward, doesn't do much defensive work, doesn't get his hands dirty in and around the contest, and gets on the outside. And he's the player for Melbourne who dominates in clearances and just shoots them forward, but hasn't been doing that. Showed glimpses of it today, but wasn't able to pull it all together for a very impressive score. Obviously, basically cracked a ton there, just 1 point under 100. But wouldn't be bringing him yet off the bye. If you're strapped for cash, he's definitely one that I could think would continue his form from last year towards the back end of the season, when Melbourne definitely want to win some games desperately to kind of rubber stamp their credentials in the top 4. But I wouldn't be one to go get him straight after his bye. But one that I think wouldn't surprise me if he comes out guns blazing after his bye, having that rest would do him a world of good, as would the rest would do for Gawn as well, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And we'll touch on Max Gawn now. So 70. He did cop a injury, I think, in the second quarter or throughout the first half. Is this just a case of holding him or get rid of him?
I think there would be the concern if he just played terribly and wasn't around it. But yeah, he got absolutely whacked from left from pillar to post. Unfortunately, got a whack in the back multiple times in marking contest. Then his knee niggle and just was basically just a player on field in the second half. Could barely do anything. Was lucky to get to that 70 in the end. With the rate he was going at, he could barely be on the field himself. So I think it's another scenario where we know what he's capable of. He's struggling a little bit as a couple of the Melbourne boys for the last couple of weeks. But yeah, again, wouldn't be surprised if he bounces back after his bye.
Yeah, his break even's 84. So obviously with that 198 still in his cycle, you'd probably almost back him in to get above 84. He actually went up 20k this week off that 70. So he's not really the worst option. I definitely wouldn't be trading him out. Moving on, so obviously that's the end of the games. So moving on, I'm just going to quickly get up the website, the AFL website here. Just want to get your eyes really quick on some early potential captain, vice captain options. I'm not sure if I can get them all in there.
That's all right.
I'll see how we go. Oh no, I can't. Okay, so we've got. Let's maybe look at a vice captain, given that I don't think you'll be picking one on a Sunday for a vice captain. So I've got these 4 games here, and then the Giants and the Bulldogs on thing. So out of those games, where are you sort of leaning towards the captain or vice captain off your early one? I've got a left field one this week who I think might go gangbusters. But I'll let you go first.
If you have Tom Stewart and he comes back, watch out. He could go absolutely berserk against West Coast. But unfortunately, I don't have him. So, yeah, I can't base him. One of the Carlton boys, probably, maybe a Cripper into VC or even a Doherty. Going into probably Rory Laird as like a bit of a safer option against Gold Coast. I think he'll just rack it up. But yeah, there's not too many good vice VC options. GWS have that tricky game against the Dogs, which wouldn't be too confident or straight captaining anyone. Maybe if I had to, probably just VC McRae and as a safer option. But what are your early thoughts going into this round?
Yeah, well, my left field option here is Jack Sinclair against Essendon.
Oh, it's not a bad shout, actually.
St Kilda could literally win this game by 100 points. And Jack Sinclair is probably one of the quickest players in St Kilda's side, I reckon. And with that right foot of his, he's been extraordinary off halfback this year. I think he can slice open this Essendon backline with his kicking. I wouldn't be surprised if him and Brad Hill both scored 140 plus on the weekend, to be honest with you. That's how bad Essendon are at defending. Yeah. I think this could be a game where Sinclair and Brad Hill just both rack up 30, 35 disposals like they did against, who was it? Was it North Melbourne or West Coast?
Yeah, I think North was it.
Yeah, and I think they both
very similar thing.
I think they both scored 140 around the 140 mark that week. So I think we could see another game like that here, with them playing Essendon, and I think Jack Sinclair will be the way that I go. And for captain option, I'm probably going to play safe with Laird as well. I do like Tom Stewart against West Coast as well. But then again, we have seen that in games where they are one-sided, like I think this one will be, that players don't score as well because the weighting, how the scoring works, they get weighted when the game's closer. So obviously, if Geelong win this game by sort of 10 plus goals, which is what I think most people are expecting, it could maybe impact Stewart's scoring a little bit. Just given that obviously if West Coast aren't scoring, then Stewart's probably not going to be scoring as much unless he's just intercepting everything. So that's just something to keep in mind there. But yeah, I think for me, it's probably going to be one of these Gold Coast or Adelaide guys as a captain. Probably Laird or Miller, I would say. And have you got any trade things off the top of your head yet, or is it still a bit early?
Yeah, a little bit early. I think either might not trade at all. potentially, or maybe just getting a rookie. I've got enough players, or plenty of players to pick from for this round. This is obviously around where basically my full complement of team are ready to go, which is nice to see. So try to get in my final premium if I'm able to get the player once over. I'll bring him in and finish off the side. But yeah, we'll see how we go, and hopefully, Jonas will be back hopefully by Thursday or Wednesday, whatever it is we do the Q&A podcast. And until then, hopefully everyone gets their trades sorted out before lockout. I think it's a Thursday night lockout this week as well with the Carlton Richmond game, which will be a good one. So yeah, hopefully get your trades done by then, and we'll catch you for the Q&A pod.